1450 FM 99.3 KNSI. You are listening to Your Health and our guest, Dr. Jill Amsberry. She is a pediatrician with CentraCare. Dr. Amsberry, good morning. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
For example, healthy eating for kids and how to help picky eaters. Oh my gosh. Have you been talking to my wife? Because I am, or at least used to be, one of the pickiest eaters ever. Right? I grew up with white bread, and that's what you have, and ketchup on your turkey, of course, and all that stuff. And then I met my wife, and I tried Chinese food for the first time. Holy moly, try it, you'll like it, right? I don't know why I was such a picky eater. We're going to be talking about the confirmation of the importance of a healthy diet in lifelong health, not only with babies, but kids and all the way through our lives. Going to talk about some of the health consequences of limiting food choices or consuming trendy foods, right? And also, what are some of the strategies for healthy eating? And how do we help teenagers care about healthy eating? That's got to be tough. All right. Where would you like to begin this morning?
Wherever you'd like.
Well, I'm going to start with those babies, right? Because we know what babies kind of come with an instruction manual, and that it says on the formula, or if you're breastfeeding, right? They tell you exactly what you should do. The pediatrician like yourself sends out a little rule book, that sort of thing. And kids, when they're little, usually get a balanced diet, right?
That's right. Yep. So infants are pretty simple to feed in general, once they get the hang of it. Right. So formula, breast milk, and they're growing rapidly. So they're eating a lot. So even in that 9-month, 12-month, when they start to take more solid foods, table foods, they're still doing a good job in eating a wide variety of foods.
Sure. And it's interesting because, there's kind of a rule book that says, okay, your child is this old, they should be eating more of this kind of food. Then they graduate to the next thing and the next thing, and pretty soon, they're eating hamburgers.
Right.
Yeah. Which is awesome. I remember being frightened, right? Because am I feeding my child enough? How do I know that they are getting enough food?
Right. And that comes from that really easy way to tell that your kid's getting enough food early on. So, you mix up a bottle of formula, you know exactly how much they're getting.
Right.
Or you're breastfeeding and you know that they seem satisfied and you feel empty, you feel like they got enough.
Sure.
And we're watching their weights very closely in those first years. So we're getting to see
they're
growing. Yes. What happens is that after that first year of life, so right around 12 months through that 18-month range, they don't grow as quickly. And that's when that's when they're transitioning to table food. And that's when they're not as excited about the variety of foods that they may have done before.
I don't like this.
Right.
Or I'm going to turn my nose up at that. They may not even be speaking yet, right?
Right.
But they know what they like and what they don't like.
That's right.
Do you remember the look on your child's face the first time you gave them a little bit of ice cream?
Absolutely. And the first time I gave them a little bit of lemon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
The opposite thing. So what do we do? How do we help our kids make better choices starting at that, 1-2 year age?
One of the most important things for parents to know is that it's okay that they're picky. It's expected. It's part of their behavior. You watch their regular behavior throughout the day. It's a little erratic. Yeah. That's how their feeding behavior is going to be too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That it's okay for your kids to be picky eaters.
That's right. So the most important thing, and I tell parents, is that kids get a wide variety of foods throughout the week. So a rainbow of foods throughout the week. Your kid might be really into breakfast for a little while and then really not eat much for lunch or dinner. Or your kid may be into just one food for 3 to 4 days. That's all they'll eat, only raspberries, only blueberries, something like that.
That is hilarious because that happens a lot, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And that's normal behavior. That's what we expect. So the important thing is that the parent doesn't make that into a battle.
Right.
Because once mealtime becomes a battle, you've lost.
Right. Interesting. How do you get that? How do you communicate that to your children? That, listen, try just a bite, right? That's the universal thing. Just try a bite of this cauliflower.
Right. So we recommend that families have family mealtime and that the kids are fed the same thing that the parents are eating. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it's also important that parents are eating healthy foods themselves. putting their plate out with a wide variety of foods, knowing that they're not going to eat everything. In fact, they may only eat one thing, but that visual exposure is really important. Eventually, the kids might touch that blueberry or whatever it is they don't want, or they might lick it or smell it. And all of those things are great for their exposure. We know that kids need to be exposed to a food. Sometimes it's 10 to 20 times before they'll ever take a taste.
I'll be darned.
We do recommend, though, that on that plate, there's something that they really like and something that's new. The new thing we call the adventure bite or a no thank you bite. So taking a no thank you or an adventure bite, and then that's enough. That's okay. And you don't need to do, if it's broccoli, you don't need to serve broccoli at every meal, bringing it back a week or two later.
I think about, you mentioned broccoli, right? And there's, it can be cooked or it can be eaten raw. Right. Obviously, your young child is not going to be scarfing down raw broccoli. But it's interesting because the texture of those two foods, cooked versus raw, is so different. And they may like one as opposed to the other, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So trying foods in different ways can be very important, or adding different flavors to it. So putting some cheese with your broccoli. Where the kids may like cheese and they like that kind of the sweetness or the saltiness of the cheese, and you add the broccoli with it. I
was going to ask you about spices, specifically salt, because that's one of the things that people like, right? Salt and sweet.
Yeah.
So if we add a little, is that okay?
We usually don't recommend it because we want the kids to be able to taste the food as it is, without all of the additives on top of it. Other spices are okay to add into the food. It's not that you can't have, that kids can't have spicy food, though here in Minnesota you may think so.
That is true. Spice for us is salt or pepper, right?
Exactly.
That's about it. Yeah. AM 1450, FM 99.3 KNSI. Dr. Jill Amsberry is our guest on this edition of Your Health. She is a pediatrician with CentraCare. When we come back, what about the food pyramid, the food guides, all of these things that we are told that our kids have to have, 6 of this, 4 of that, 3 of the other thing. What is a good balanced diet? We'll find out. Dr. Jill Amsberry will tell us what we need to know next on Your Health with KNSI. AM 1450, FM 99.3 KNSI. Welcome back to Your Health. Dr. Jill Amsberry, our guest. She's a pediatrician at CentraCare, and we're talking about kids, making sure that our kids eat what they are supposed to. That's pretty tough, isn't it?
It is tough. Yeah. Yep. It is tough. And I think we put a lot of pressure on parents, or parents feel a lot of pressure to do the right thing.
Sure. Well, we all want to do the right thing.
That's right.
Though. So I think it also starts with like healthy snacking and all of these things, right? How do you teach your kids that a good healthy snack is better than that bag of Cheetos?
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. So people equate some of these like easy bags, these quick bags.
You mean like before applesauce came in a tube?
Right, exactly. Yeah, so they equate that to quick and easy, but nothing's easier than having your kid just eat an apple or an orange.
Raisins.
Mm-hmm, right? That's right. Yep.
So do kids still like those foods?
Yeah, they do, except that we've done, again, a good job at marketing to our kids. Yeah. And so they think that they should like the things that come in a box. I always tell families, try to eat things that are real food. So food is something that grows from the ground or in trees, right? Not something that comes out of a box. So if it's something that your grandmother wouldn't know is food, then don't eat it.
And the longer the list of ingredients, oh my.
Absolutely. Yeah, you should know what is on that ingredient list. If there's something on there that you don't even know what it is, I wouldn't recommend eating it.
The worst word on the label, enriched.
Yeah, right, exactly, right.
Yeah, natural foods, folks, you can find them all the way around the perimeter of the supermarket.
Yeah, you can grow them in your own backyard.
Hey, now there's a thought. Mm-hmm. I asked you about the food pyramid, which of course is a misnomer. It's no longer the pyramid. It is now the food plate.
Right. Yeah, my plate.
My plate. Okay. Mm-hmm. So same thing, only different.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are the recommended daily amounts of this or that or the other thing these days?
It really varies based on age. So if you go to healthychildren.org, they'll give you a lot of recommendations for different, the different basic groups. So what kids should be eating for, meat, fish, poultry, or eggs, milk, cheese, and other dairy, fruit and veggies, cereals, potatoes, rice, etc. But it does vary according to age, and calorie intake obviously varies according to age as well.
So it's important that we make the effort. It's important that we keep making the effort. We talked about this in an early episode with parents. You can be friendly to you can be your child's friend, after they move out of the house. That's a really good time for that to happen. And setting good examples as well, very important, right?
Absolutely. Yep. It goes along with all of the other things that we talk about. So having a plan together as a meal, like this is why we eat this, having the kids understand why we eat it. Mm-hmm. Other things that are important are getting the kids involved in grocery shopping and food the making prep of the food. Absolutely. Yeah. Like having our little chefs in our kitchen.
Very, very cool. So with the fruits and vegetables and starches and carbs and this and that, it can sometimes be very, very confusing. Right? Is a really good way, again, to think about this is whatever you can eat that's raw, eat that's raw.
Yeah, I usually say fill your plate with fruits and vegetables colors. Or a rainbow of foods, right? Exactly.
Okay, good. What happens now with children? How soon can we start seeing that, I've got to start cutting back on this or getting more exercise?
Yeah, well, the exercise piece goes along with our screen time talk from before, right? So kids are getting less exercise because they're more screens. So we know that exercise is really important for, overall health later on, but so is food. And so having that as a factor in your family programming is really important.
It makes it, no, that's exactly the way it ought to be. It takes effort. It takes time.
That's right.
It just does not happen. You may think back to when you were a kid growing up and your parents just made it seem that way, that it just happened.
Right.
They're probably pretty good parents.
Yeah.
I would think.
I also think, though, that we make it harder than it needs to be.
Of course.
So it's not that
We're
hard.
Told that.
Right. Absolutely. It's not that hard to go to the grocery store and pick up fresh fruits and vegetables.
Great question here. When we're going through the grocery store with our children, there is a teaching moment.
Right. Absolutely. I like to use that teaching moment to have my kids, to offer my kids the opportunity to choose a different fruit or vegetable that they may have not tried before.
Right.
They're much more likely to try it if it's their choice.
Star fruit, right?
That's
Something
right.
really the weirdest thing that you would never ever consider or even heard about as a child.
Right.
For me, it's star fruit.
And absolutely. And the other thing that we recommend is staying on the outside, so the perimeter of the grocery store, right? That's usually where the healthier options are going to be.
When it comes to the healthy diet, right? Moms and dads have to set the example, but on occasion, maybe it's okay to jump off that wagon?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think it's important for kids to know that that nothing is excluded, that everything is okay in moderation, but that the majority of the time, this is the kind of food that we recommend eating.
All right. I want to jump into this whole marketing thing, right? Because it's what is so prevalent everywhere today.
Yeah.
Some of it is very insidious, right? Yeah. When I was a kid growing up, the problem was the commercials that were on your Saturday morning cartoons were all about sugary cereals, right? Sugar became the devil. And I understand that it is, right, today. But what are some of the things that you see in today's world that moms and dads really should pay attention to, that the kids are going to say, hey, I want this.
Yeah.
Billy's got it. I just saw it on TV or on my phone.
Well, we do know, and again, going back to the screen time talk, that screen time leads to obesity, not just because of inactivity, but because of the marketing that happens in the commercials in between. And that may be on TV, but remember that even on digital devices, they're seeing commercials or ads for different foods or products.
It used to be subliminal. Right? They used to have subliminal advertising. You'd go to the movie and like every fifth frame, there'd be just a second or a half a second of the popcorn. Well, guess what that's telling you? Go out and get some popcorn, right?
Right.
I wonder about all of the advertising that is done digitally and electronically that we see on the tablets or don't see on the tablets. Some of these devices may be part of the problem.
Yeah. It's very interesting to me because the healthiest foods, they don't need marketing, right?
Right.
You don't see us, throwing apples on their commercials, right? Or bananas. So I don't really know. I don't know. I believe that there's just money involved.
Absolutely.
Hey, going on.
Tell me about your kids and their favorite foods. And again, how old are they, did you say?
My kids are 8 and 4.
8 and 4. Mm-hmm. What does the pediatrician feed her children?
Well, I deal with the very same problems that every other parent deals with. Yeah. And so I have very, very picky eaters in my home. So we've had to work really hard on some of these topics. So offering different things at mealtime, and another thing that we do as a family is called bridging. So if a child has, this isn't the best example of a healthy food, but let's just say, for example's sake, that a child really likes French fries. Okay. Then let's offer them sweet potato fries. So we bridge to sweet potato fries. Then we bridge from sweet potato fries to sweet potatoes, right? So you can bridge lots of different foods if you find that a child really likes one thing or another. So they only like white bread. Let's try wheat bread that looks the same. Mm-hmm. Now let's try more whole grain bread. Now we can get into something like Ezekiel bread or some of the other, really full grain products. Right. So bridging really helps a lot with picky eaters. My kids are picky. Their favorite foods are some of the same favorite foods that other kids like, right? Yeah. We have to eat them in moderation.
Where would we be without peanut butter and jelly? That would be the biggest question in the whole wide world.
Right. But you can make peanut butter and jelly healthier too, right? So you can choose peanut butter that doesn't have added sugar, that's just ground peanut. You can choose jelly that doesn't have added, components to it too.
Sure. It takes time and it takes effort, doesn't it, Mom?
It does. But once you get the hang of it, once you get used to looking at those labels and reading those labels, it becomes a lot easier.
Dr. Jill Amsberry is our guest. So far, we have been talking about food. What about beverages? Oh, my gosh. You talk about marketing.
Right.
We will take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking about what the kids are drinking these days. Pediatrician Dr. Jill Amsberry is our guest. She, of course, is with CentraCare. You are listening to Your Health on KNSI. AM 1450, FM 99.3, KNSI. Your Health on the radio with Dr. Jill Amsberry. Dr. Jill is a pediatrician at CentraCare. Is that what your kids call you? Your patients, I should say. They call you Dr. Jill?
Yeah, they do often.
I bet they do.
Yep. Or cranberry or strawberry.
Really? Yeah. Awesome. Very neat. Yeah. Hey, speaking of cranberries and strawberries, we've been talking about foods, but let's kind of switch over to beverages these days. Sugary drinks, energy drinks, protein shakes, all this stuff. As a pediatrician, you see kids from how young to how old? Yeah, we see kids from birth to 21, 23. So somewhere around that range. I remember seeing pictures of, golly, it was probably Britney Spears and her child walking around with a bottle full of Coca-Cola or something like that, right? What does that do? And I'm not hammering on Britney much, but what does that do to a child's teeth, that constant sugar? Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not a dentist, but we know certainly that that's terrible for their teeth. But beyond their teeth, we know that it's terrible for their health in so many ways. Hey, how about getting that bottle away from the child? Is there an age? Yeah, we do recommend that we get rid of the bottle at 12 months. Okay. After 12 months, we know that that's not good for tooth development as well. How about teething rings? Good question. So, or not teething rings, pacifiers. Pacifiers. Yeah. So Hi, I'm 6 years old. Is there anything that bugs other parents more than seeing a 5-year-old kid or a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old with a pacifier? Right. Oh my goodness. Same thing. I'll get off my soapbox. Same thing with pacifiers is that we do want them to be gone by 12 months. Earlier is better. Actually, It's easier to get rid of the pacifiers earlier before they can start asking for it. Now, you mentioned the thing that you're not a dentist, obviously, but yeah, it can really mess up the development of the teeth, can it? Absolutely. Okay. Very good. Now, sugary treats, energy drinks, and protein shakes. The reason I asked you the age category of your patients, because, wow, you have to deal with the entire gamut, right? Because if a 14-year-old comes in to see you, hey, everybody's drinking these sport drinks. They're drinking the energy things. I got to work out. I have to lift weights. I have to pump up for protein and all of that kind of stuff. I'm so glad you brought that up. So that's a common concern that I have in my practice where these guys come in and they feel like they need to ingest these protein shakes. So number one,
kids in American culture get more protein than they probably actually need.
Okay.
So in general, the American diet has a lot of protein in it, so they're probably fine from a protein standpoint. We also know that more protein doesn't mean more muscle. So more strength exercises and, workouts helps with muscle build as long as you're getting maintenance of protein, which most kids are.
Moderation is the key, though. Talk to a trained professional, somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and actually it's really dangerous if you don't. So those kids that are ingesting a lot of protein shakes actually can harm their body, their kidneys long term.
Absolutely. Now tell me about energy drinks or sport drinks, which are kind of interchangeable, but they're really not.
Yeah, so some sport drinks do have some energy components to them. Again, we have not found that this is beneficial at all for kids. And in fact, again, most of those products contain a lot of sugar, and many of the products have caffeine and other additives that are not good for kids. They're not good for brain development. They're not good for physical development, and they're not good for sleep.
Water is pretty darn good last time I checked.
Water's pretty awesome. I'd say that's the gold standard in drinks for kids.
A 5-hour energy drink is another one of those things, and I'm just picking on that one because that's the one I see all the time on television. I just noticed they're starting to use green tea to mask the caffeine, but they mentioned the caffeine is still in there, but now they're using natural green tea. What about these energy drinks that are filled with caffeine? And is that all that's in there?
Pretty much. Okay. They have some herbal components usually in them that aren't well studied either. Again, my recommendation is let's stick with stuff that's food. Let's have our kids ingesting things that are real food, not something that's been bottled in a commercial building. And
I'm going to go back to the conversation that we had about screen time. Who knows what is happening to our children just because they're advertising this and everybody's using it, everybody's doing it. Mom and Dad, you have to kind of step up.
That's right.
You really, really do.
It's hard work.
Talk to your doctor. Doctors don't lie. They want the best for your children.
Absolutely.
Get vaccinated. Oh, did I just throw that in there? Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Dr. Jill Amsberry, thank you for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Amsberry, pediatrician with CentraCare, and you have been listening to Your Health, AM 1450, FM 99.3, KMSI.